hello everyone again. Thank you very much for joining me. And we am continuing with Chapter 18, Dolor and Shadow. And here is my legal disclaimer. This is written by Angela B. Chrysler. It's Dolor and Shadow. I am the author and the publisher, and I have full rights to do this. So I will go ahead and read Chapter 18 tonight. And then tomorrow I'll be reading Chapter 19. Just a quick note, my website is still down. I know that it should be up tomorrow, I'm hoping. But in the meantime, I am currently filling in all over social media, doing the full rounds. You can catch me literally everywhere at this point. Facebook, I put together a story time there. And this video is literally uploaded on all my social medias, YouTube, Pinterest now. Let me think if I can go through them. Just see here for a minute. Let me see here, because I have a lot of people who cross over. Okay, the videos will be appearing on my Twitter account, my Facebook account, YouTube, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Google+, and Goodreads, and also my website, which I have a lot now to catch up on once I upload them there. So, and also, it is December 28th, so I have 2 more days of my sale going. The 31st of December is when the sale ends on all my ebooks. They are 99 cents ebook, and then paperbacks are also marked down. Let me see here. Dolor and Shadow is marked down to $12 and change from 18 until December 31st, and Broken is marked down to $8.69. I also have 2 Goodreads giveaways going on, and that ends January 31st. So that's also going at the time. And as I said, I really hope my website should be up and running tomorrow, but when it's down, it's hard on me. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just read here. Chapter 18. The sun settled beyond the trees, spilling the last of day's light into the thick forests of Alfheim. In premature celebration, the Dolor wasted no time erecting fires, stewing meats, and breaking into the meat. Huddled around fires built a bit grander than necessary, the Dolor woman passed bowls of stew and exchanged drink with Tail as they merged themselves in song and victory. The camp buzzed with a warm joviality that extended well into the night. Amid the celebrations, unbeknownst to all, Borg made his way through the Dolor camp. The solace of his tent couldn't come quickly enough. Exhaustion from the day's march was noticeable, and he directed his thoughts to the hot mead and meats waiting for him. A shadow descended with a death-like chill, and his breath stilled. Taking care to remain unseen, he redirected his path into the clusters of trees. The ground crunched beneath his boots. The orange glow of the camp faded as he neared the shadows within the forest. The camp was well behind him now. He swept his gaze over the trees. Borg. Borg stopped. A growl emerged from the forest, and he followed the faceless voice into the darkness without hesitation. A pair of deep black eyes emerged, lined with the frame of a sickly pale face cloaked in a thick black beard with wild wool-like hair to match. The shadows did well to conceal him. Monseigneur, Borg addressed the darkness where the night was blackest. You're running out of time, Borg, Monseigneur said. Borg tightened his jaw as cold contemplation blinked at his eyes. There's been a delay, he said. She's alone now, in a tent guarded by no less than 2 gods, Monseigneur ground. Borg didn't miss the bite in his tone. You were supposed to be providing us with the opportunity. You've been paid to deliver. And I gave you an opportunity last night, Borg said. I signaled you the moment she took off. You could have taken her then. She was not alone, Monseigneur snarled. There was another. Hot hate boiled in Borg's chest, and he inhaled, commanding his composure. I told you then I don't know the hunter, he said through gritted teeth. She was alone when she left here, and alone when she returned. Through the shadows, Borg could feel Monsignor's eyes pass over him, assessing him, ready to pass judgment. When? Monsignor asked. We arrive in Lorlenalin in 2 days, Borg said. The Queen hates confinement. She'll seek to abandon her god. I can signal you then. Monsignor examined Borg, who stared back with a determined hate that blocked all other thoughts. You have 2 days, Monsignor said. The shadows shifted, and Monsignor was gone. Alone, Borg stood listening to the rustle of wind as life returned to the clearing. He wasn't sure how long he waited before he willed himself to move again. Abandoning all thought of the idle comforts that waited in his tent, Borg returned to camp, pleased with the evening's events. Gudrun dropped the tent flap behind her. A few strands of silver hair hung in her face as she pulled close her evening robes against the chill. A single candle burned at the table where Kallan sat staring at nothing beyond the flame. Kallan's thin white chemise did little against the bitter bite in the air, but she didn't shiver. As Gudrun pulled her shawl around her shoulders, the single flame flickered, distorting Kallan's face in a myriad of orange and black. Kallan, Gudrun's voice grazed over the queen, who sat motionless, watching the fire engulf the wick. Gudrun approached her granddaughter, who didn't move to smile or frown or reprimand. She hardly moved to breathe. Still died fighting to delay the suffocation, Gudrun whispered, and brushed back a strand of Kallan's locks. Fighting and losing to the darkness that will eventually win. Kallan didn't move. Excuse me. You seek to take shelter within the cold asylum of that void. Sink deeper into the black chasm where all thoughts end and where feelings cease to be. Keep sinking, Kallan, and you will find your Sade leave you. Kallan coldly stared. You will die, killed by the grief that suffocates you. Kallan? Gudrun shifted a gaze to the untouched tray of dried fruits and salted meats. Kallan, you must eat, she said. It will be another 2 days before we reach Lorlenalin. In silence, Kallan stared, oblivious to the world around her. Gudrun touched Kallan's arm and effortlessly reached into Kallan with her scythe. Almost at once she found what she had been looking for. Kallan had already descended into the abyss within that she had made herself for herself. Her scythe was cold like winter ice. Its flow was sluggish, almost stagnant like bog water where no air, no life, and no flow could reach it. In contrast, Gudrun's own scythe moved with an energy that exuded heat and nourished her lifeline. She knew what Kallan had done, a dangerous thing for any Sedkona, especially one who underestimated her own abilities. Gudrun focused her energy deeper and pushing her flow into Kallan's. She forced the immobile scythe to move and turned the currents within her own. But something wasn't right. The path flowed wrong. Gudrun furrowed her brow as the color returned to Kallan's face and life flowed back. In all of Midgard, only 2 could do such a thing. Eric. The new path was too old to correct, not now. It would require a lot of work to restore Kallan's sidelines. But when? And why? Gudrun pondered as Kallan took in a slow, deep breath. Her chest rose, expanding with air, and Gudrun pulled back, withdrawing her scythe from her grandchild. For the first time in hours, Kallan altered her gaze, lifting her face to the old woman whose long silver hair was braided back, the ends tied at the tip with a bit of leather. Gudrun watched the silent scream staring back from Kallan's eyes. Wordlessly, Kallan pleaded, while inside she crumbled beneath her grief. A chill swept the tent, and Gudrun stood. Eric released the tent flap as the old Sedkona studied him. Scowling, she set to work making tea. Water filled the cup. Loudly, Gudrun clinked the cup and dipped her finger into the water, which was boiling in a matter of moments. How is she? Eric asked, keeping his voice low. Unable to form the words, Gudrun shook her head and pulled her finger from the water. She knew too little about his reasons to say too much about Kallan's altered Sid path. Without a word, Gudrun poured powdered lavender, sage, and mint into the boiling water until the aroma hung heavy in the air. The fire crackled, and Gudrun provided the cup to Kallan, who quietly took the tea. Before Eric could inquire, Gudrun dropped a fur onto Kallan's shoulders. I'll be back in an hour to check on you, she said, and planted a kiss on Kallan's brow. Turning, Gudrun mustered up her best fake smile for Eric and slipped out the door, leaving the High Marshal alone with Kallan. What do you need, Eric? Kallan said over the rim of her cup. Exhaustion weighed thick in every word. The prisoner has been cleaned and fed, Eric said. Kallan nodded and tipped the cup to her lips. Is there anything else? There is, Eric said. Will you be seeing him now? Kallan lowered her tea, keeping her eyes fixed on the candle's flame. She pondered the question, enveloped by the cold panic that swept over her each time she thought of nearing King Rune's tent. No. Eric nodded in acknowledgement, and reached for the flap of hide that was the door. Eric, he turned back to his queen. Dagon should have presented you with letters of execution, she said, and took a sip of her tea. He did? Are you ready for my seal? She took another sip. Kallan, Eric stepped toward her. I beg you to think about this. Killing the king will only enrage the Dark One. Kallan glanced up from her cup. The fire in her eye glared with conflict, refusing to leave the war on the battlefield. The Darkfall will demand no less than his death, Kallan said, and with the endless amount of the blood that has been spilled by their warmongering, it leaves me little room to disagree. The Darkfall are wrong, Eric said. Kallan's chest rose and fell with every silent breath. The surface of her tea remained undisturbed by the tremors of temper running through her. The air in the room thickened. Mind yourself, she said. You tread dangerously close to enemy waters, or have you developed compassion for the prisoner you were charged to keep? The fire popped. Have you given any thought to the repercussions of this execution? Eric asked. By killing the Lias of Akin, the Dark One will rise up in vengeance. Have you given any thought to the rage you'll stir in him if you kill his king? Kallan's eyes hardened at the mention of the berserker deemed the Dark One. He will come for his king, Eric said. 'Tis only a matter of time, and when he does, he will rise up and demand Rune be returned. I promise you. You will want the Lias of Akin alive to give back to him, or he will break every stone of Lorlenalin. Kallan looked back at the candle. The Dark One's vengeance was exactly what she was hoping for. In your eagerness to end this war, you will spark a new hatred within the Liasafar, Eric said. They will seek to destroy you with a rage that will only be quelled when your blood flows into the bones of their ancestors. The Darkafar demand the king's execution, Kallan said. The people have that right. The people are blinded by an angel's hatred for that bloodline. Why are you so moved to spare him? Kallan asked, calming her voice to a whisper. Not spare him, Kallan, Eric said. Protect you. Kallan studied his eyes, then dropped her gaze to her cup. Sleep was settling in, and she started to sip again. She sunk her back into the chair. Gudrun's brew was working well. Kallan, Eric forced his voice low. I served with your father long before the migration. I've known the Lias for centuries longer than any Dagobah has known this land. I once ate with them, laughed with them, slept with them. Kallan peered into her cup. I promise you, they will rise up and start this war all over again. Her tea had lost its steam. The Dark One does not know the way into our city, she said. Our stronghold is impenetrable, our fortress unbreakable. He will find a way. Kallan raised her face to the High Marshal. Venom overshadowed her gaze. The Lias of Akin dies in Lorlenalin's courtyard. Do not forget which side you're on, High Marshal. She spoke each word sharply, confirming the end of the conversation. With his complexion slightly paler than it had been moments ago, Eric lowered his head and forced an agreeable answer. I'll have the letters prepared for the execution.